On today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, email sucks. I've done episodes on this topic before. In fact, I've written blogs, articles, etc. I have vented about this topic numerous times. But as of April 11th, 2023, I'm going to give you my updated top 5 reasons why I think email sucks and should not be used as a primary communication tool. In fact, I don't even like to call it a communication tool. I prefer to call it a documentation tool, which is really what it should be used for, not as a primary communication tool. Here are my top 5 reasons I think it sucks, in no particular order. You ready? Number 1, time or speed, I guess, whichever word you want to use. It just takes longer to get answers, to get responses. I watch people wait for days and weeks and go through 4 or 5 email exchanges trying to have a conversation, when if they would just pick up the phone or get up from their desk or get on a video call and talk it through for 15 minutes, they'd be done. So number 1, it's slower. It makes everything go slower. Just pick up the phone and have a verbal conversation. Okay? Verbal conversations always go faster. So number 1 is time or speed. Number 2, emotions. There are so many human personal emotions that get tied up in email because people are reading the tone the wrong way. They're making assumptions on the tone of the message because it doesn't have a smiley face or there's no explanation point or whatever. Like they read into the situation more than they should, and they start making some assumptions, and then they get upset and so forth. I see it all the time. Somebody will call me and be like, well, look at this email. And I read the email and I think, well, it looks fine to me, but it doesn't look fine to the other person. And there's usually no ill will, so to speak, or bad intentions in an email message, but people read it that way and then they make some assumptions. So the emotional piece is number 2. All the emotions that we waste minutes on because people are reading into emails the wrong way. That's number 2. Number 3, confusion or misunderstanding. Yeah, that's number 3. On top of the emotional piece, it's just a sheer misunderstanding. They read the email and it's not written well, or the person didn't communicate everything they should have. They left some pieces out. So now there's some additional questions and so forth. I know some people will actually argue that no, an email is more clear than a verbal conversation because at least an email is documented, but I'll come back to the documentation part. The reason a verbal conversation is better is because you can get immediate questions from the person, right? In case they're confused by your messaging, they can immediately just talk it through right then. Okay, so it alleviates this whole misunderstanding most of the time. So number 3 is it's less confusing, believe it or not, to just talk it through. Okay, and you can get a read on the person's face if they look confused. You can see that they might have additional questions, and you can't see that when you send an email. Number 4, email reduces the quality of relationships, in my opinion. When you are forced to talk to somebody face to face, look them in the eye on a video conference, or see them face to face in the office, or even speak to them on the phone, the relationship overall is always better. It's just always better than a 100% email relationship where you've never met the person. It's just always better. So email, it's hard on relationships, and it's so much easier to establish a real connection with somebody if you talk to them. So that was number 4. And number 5, nobody reads anyway. No, everybody skims. Everybody skims. Nobody reads it. I mean, if it's over 2 lines, good luck on somebody reading your 3-paragraph email. That's number 5. Nobody reads it. Okay. Don't assume they're reading it. And you can't assume they're reading it. I know you got a lot of you have these tracking things, right? With a little tattletale button, you can see if somebody clicks on it or opens the email. Well, just because they open it doesn't mean they're reading it. So you never really know. But if you talk to them, you know they heard you because you're looking at them or you can hear their voice. So that's number 5. Nobody reads. I could go on and on, but let me finish with this. I recommend that you use email primarily as a documentation tool. Like it documents something that needs to have a paper trail, so to speak, something that can be referenced or whatever. A great way to do it, what I try to do a lot of times, and I'm not perfect at this either, but I will have a conversation with somebody. I'll call them and talk through an issue. We'll talk about it. We'll make some decisions. I'll give some direction. And then I will send an email and say, hey, Johnny, just wanted to kind of document and recap what we talked about today. Boom, done. Then I have my documentation paper trail to go back and prove that I talked to Johnny about it. But all it is something that I've documented. It's not the original communication piece, right? That's the best way to do it, really, in my opinion. Stop hiding behind email in general with the initial conversation and stop wasting time trying to have a full-blown conversation with 5 or 6 email strings back or forth. I mean, that is so ridiculous. Just pick up the phone. And there is your Riderflex tip of the day.